You are already on the path of awakening. It's time to transition from a life of struggle to a life of play. It's time to discover your autonomy, agency, sovereignty, and potency. Welcome to Reveal the Game of Life. Hey everyone, welcome back to Reveal the Game of Life, the show where we talk about far out shit and make it hopefully easier to apply big spiritual concepts to your everyday life. I'm Molly Mandelberg, one of your hosts. I'm here with
Chris Tomaso.
Someday want to compile all the foghorn sounds that we've done just to have like a reel of them. That would be really funny.
Or put them all on top of each other. So it's like this giant, loud, room filling
that would be
announcement.
Cool. So today we're talking about, we're going to find the thread of it, but it's interesting to note that each of us have a different set of capacities, skills, talents, abilities. And Chris and I have found this out through our studying of the gene keys and human design and looking at sort of what are our innate strengths? What are the things we've been asking of ourselves to do in our different career paths in life? And then what are the places where those have felt more fulfilled, or where our capacities, our talents, our abilities, our superpowers are actually made better use of because we put ourselves into the right context to get that out of us. And the idea is that all of us have special skills and talents that maybe not everybody on earth has. And when we put ourselves into the right roles and jobs and settings, that those parts of us get to shine. And so one of the things we want to talk about is that there are no original ideas left, that pretty much everything humans are going to do or think or express is kind of starting to have happened already. And inside of that, it can feel limiting. Like, who am I to go and be another fucking life coach? Or who am I to go and preach about transformation or spirituality? Like, everything has kind of been done. Who am I to go and direct another movie? Like, pretty much all the movie ideas that are out there have kind of already happened, including aliens versus cowboys. Like, who would have thought, but that happened. But inside of that, there's actually still opportunity to be unique, to be special, to have brilliant ideas. And it doesn't have to be that something new is occurring, but it's either a new lens or a new transmutation or translation of something that's already happened, so that a new audience or a new group of people can receive that from you. That was my intro. Chris, over to you.
So what you were speaking about is this great fear that I've had, and maybe all creatives have, is, am I original? Do I have a great idea? I have this story in my head that success would be determined on the strength of my ideas, and not just strength, but also uniqueness and originality of my ideas. But if you think, oh, the value is in the originality, then that's a shaky ground to be on if you consider originality as not being affected by anything else. Like, we are humans on Earth, surrounded by each other and constantly listening to and absorbing stories and ideas from other people. And so this idea that there needs to be like an original thing that is connected to nothing else is, I think, kind of a flawed idea. There's like this concept of there's only, 7 stories, or there's only 42 stories in all of like human history. Like, there's this idea that everything can be boiled down to a few component parts. It's like you said, that any thought has already been thought. That's a really like a serious like mind fuck if you like go down that path, is that even the thoughts you're having right now are not, quote, original. They have been thought before. And yet so much of value and identity is around around ideas themselves. Is like, I came up with this idea and therefore I am a genius or I am valuable. So I want to use a different context, which is that if we are in a world where we're simply just repeating things that have already come before, the value is in our unique perspective, which has never happened, because we are as the humans we are basically a collection of experiences and perspectives that only we have. And so the value is not in the idea, it's in the idea filtered through you, which is why we're here having this podcast, because all these things have been said before. I mean, like, it's funny how many times, like, I'll read like a spiritual text and it's just saying the same stuff. We've been saying this over and over again, and yet there is value. So where is the value coming from? Yeah. Is the question.
And I think that really depends on where the person receiving the value is too, which is why we bother to make this podcast, because some of the people who want to listen to this, and thank you, by the way, for listening to this episode, maybe aren't reading the same spiritual text, or maybe you read that spiritual text and it didn't really land with you until it came out of our silly mouths. And so it's like the value of something isn't degraded or lost by repetition. It's almost like the repetition gives more people an opportunity to have it actually land with them. And so the same reason why I've gone to the same transformational leadership event dozens of times, because every time I showed up to the same event, I got something different out of it. I was a different person showing up to it to receive something new. And I heard things differently through that lens. And I went away with different takeaways every time, because the experience of receiving the same message shifted, or it was different, or it was highlighted in new ways for me because of who I was sitting in that chair receiving the same event. And the same is true for, I talk to coaches and entrepreneurs and business owners. Dozens of my clients have had the same niche. Dozens of my clients have had the same target audience, the same desired outcome, the same basic message that they want to share with the world. But there's something to be said for the energetic frequency that we're showing up in the world with, that people are magnetized to different people for different unseen, unknown, untellable reasons. And to not show up because you're worried your message is too similar to someone else's is to basically rob that audience of people who is there for you, who's waiting for you to show up, of the facilitation, the support, the guidance, the mentorship that they need, because they can't really sit right with that other 25 or 50 or 1,000 people who are teaching that. They're waiting for you, the one that they actually resonate on the same level with, to get that message from. So yeah, I guess on my little soapbox, I want to say, stop hiding, share your message, say it however you think you need to say it. And also recognize that, like, I am a copywriter, I am a author, which is fun to say. I am someone who values words very much and who really loves making a compelling post or a compelling email or writing something that moves people. And I also very much acknowledge that the words we put out into the world, the message that we display, is only part of what brings our people to us. It's also that energetic frequency, that signature that you have as a being in your body on this planet that resonates with different people in different ways. And that is sorely missed if it's gone for those people. Yeah. And so we can put less weight into the actual mechanics of something and recognize that who we're being and how we're allowing ourselves to become more of that is definitely more valuable than anything you could say or any job you could choose.
Yeah. It's almost like we talked about claiming your seat at the table a couple episodes ago. There's also claiming your people, I think.
Yeah.
Like, who are the people you were talking about? Like, you're robbing your audience. The opposite is showing up for your audience, for the people who are ready to hear something the way you're going to tell it.
Yeah.
They're ready to hear your version of the same thing.
There's something also that's been coming up for me because, we have different aspects of personal development and growth that tap us on the shoulder at different times. And one of the ones that's been poking its head back up at me is human design. And I am a generator in human design, which I've always felt really acknowledged by. Like, I'm a master of creation. Like, I make shit happen. And I have an energy to me that is, like, not just compelling and dynamic, but it's also like a source. It's a source of energy that I have access to, that I walk through the world with, and that I know turns people on and lights things up, and also allows me to be as wildly productive as I usually am. And so I've been thinking of, there's so many aspects of that human design chart that I haven't looked at a lot lately, but Instagram keeps hearing my inner dialogue and sending me more stuff about being a generator. And that lens, that sort of container of human design, is something I highly recommend that people not necessarily study the hell out of, because it's such a deep well to go down, or a deep rabbit hole to walk through, but to look at least the basics of what your chart has to tell you, and see if your life right now is living in alignment with that or not. One of the things that the message from human design has been reminding me of is that as a generator, it's far less important what I do or what I get done, as it is important that I do it from a place of enthusiasm or excitement or joy. That if I'm trying to sit down and write a bunch of social media posts from a place of, shoot, I really need to get this done, this has to happen, okay, I'll make myself do it. The stuff that's going to come out and the vibration that it goes out with is not even worth having done it. Versus if I just wait until the excitement and the energy is behind that specific task or project, then it comes out not just how I want it to come out, but it comes out with an energetic component that is far beyond what else it could have been if I didn't wait for that. And so there's something to acknowledge of like, hey, I'm sitting down to write this email. As a generator, how do I feel about doing that right now? Is this where I want to put my energy, or is there something else that would light me up more? And so I've been making tie-dye and starting a new painting and publishing my book, and really trying to follow that of like, in this specific moment, here's my long ass to-do list that I overexert onto myself. Which of these is alive right now? Which one actually wants my attention? Okay, am I willing to put everything else aside and just do that one right now? Maybe just do that one for 20 minutes until the next one shows up. But that lens of human design lets me see my life in a different way and lets me interact with my business in a different way. And that's going to be different depending on what your type is, what your whatever open sacral, whatever parts of it. I don't know enough about human design to speak about it really eloquently, but there's a lot of information there that is specific to you as a being in a body on this planet, that can help you find a way to live your life in alignment and get the most, not just out of you, but out of everything you create or everywhere you show up.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot out of human design as well. I'm a manifesting generator, so I do. Yeah, there's a lot of me. There's a lot of us, and there's a lot of us in the spiritual worlds. Because it's very, I joked about it on a previous episode. It's like spiritual ADHD. It's just like doing a lot of stuff, but also going where the energy is and responding a lot. So instead of thinking like, I need to create reality from my mind, it's looking outside. What do I want to respond to that's in my reality? Because actually creating reality from mind creates frustration, because then it doesn't look like what you think it will look like. And people don't come along with you because you've got the story in your head of how things should be, instead of just doing what's in front of you. So that's, if you've heard me say that story, that's like the story of manifesting generators as well. I wanted to also bring in gene keys. There's this concept in gene keys of it's like the way that you show up in your career. And there's different lines, and again, I'm like you, I can't speak that eloquently about it. But the thing that was really powerful for me on this originator versus translator idea is that I always thought that in order to be valuable, I needed to create something original and amazing. And when I read my gene keys, we'll call it profile, it said that actually, no, you're a marketer type, not a creator or originator. And I was like, I don't want to be a marketer. I hate marketing. And then I read more about what it was. And one of the things that's great about gene keys is it unpacks what it means when it says these words. So for the marketer type, it's being able to see to the heart of something that you love. And then that love causes you to distill it and translate it into a different context. And then I thought about, who do I know that is like that I look up to? And Steven Spielberg is like one of the best versions of that. In Jurassic Park, he didn't write the book Jurassic Park, but he took what was amazing about it and then he distilled it into something that was arguably even more impactful, the movie, than the book was. So it's translating across mediums, is like the superpower, right? And when I understood that, it actually gave me a lot of peace, because I said, oh, I actually don't need to do this thing that I'm not even here to do. I'm not here to be the George R.R. Martin and create, or the J.R.R. Tolkien and create a whole world unto myself. I'm here to see the things that I love and then amplify those things, which is very much what I'm doing on this podcast. None of this is original. It is simply just my interpretation of the spiritual truths that I have come across.
Yeah. With our very original personalities, signatures,
right,
pasted upon them.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you about, what's coming up for me is if nothing is original, then why can't I just copy somebody else's path to success? Because if the information itself is not new or different, and that person was successful, then why have I not been successful in that path? And what should I do differently?
Yeah, great questions. We kind of covered some of this in the throne claiming your seat at the table episode, because nobody's seat at the table is actually going to look like your seat. But there are plenty of examples of people who said, hey, look at how that business model is working. I'm just going to mimic it exactly and go and use it, and it will work. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. That depends on if that's the highest expression of how you are supposed to be walking your path. I think sometimes when we're in copy mode, there's a imposter syndrome alarm that will go off and sabotage it. That will say, this isn't really for me. This isn't really mine. I'm taking this.
Right.
That sort of collapses it energetically from the inside. But then there's also the possibility of saying, okay, it's really valuable actually in copywriting to look at, okay, I'm having this offer. This is the thing I want to put out in the world. I'm going to go look at a dozen other people who are selling an offer exactly like this and see how they talk about it and see how well they're doing with it, and say, okay, what about that works that I could use for me? Not to plagiarize, not to take their copy, not to copy their offer, but to see they've already refined the methodology of serving this audience with this kind of offer. What can I glean from that would be useful for me? Is my copy talking about the process too much? Does it need to lean back into the results? So I'm answering this, I think, through the lens of business marketing, of course, because that's how I roll. But often it's not going to feel as good. And so your heart isn't going to be behind it. If you feel like you're copying something from someone else, it's not going to be as fun. It's not going to be as enlivening as if you feel like you're the creator, the generator of it in some way. What would it take to be back in play mode and exploration mode and testing and curiosity about something, so that you don't feel that dissonance?
Right. Yeah. I think, like you said, copying is based on the imposter syndrome. It's like based on the story that if I put out my own original stuff, so to speak, it's not going to be valuable. So then if I just take someone else who I know to be successful and just copy what they do, then I will basically be able to take some of that value for myself.
To duplicate it.
Yeah. Whereas the opposite is actually more true. Like if you take something that works and you take what's inspiring to you about it, you reflect on it from your own experience, and then you create something that is original in the sense that it is an expression of you, then that itself is going to be far more valuable than that person's thing. But if you think to yourself, I can't be anything like anyone else, it needs to be fully original, then again, you're in that fear. I have to do this in order to be successful. So as soon as you're thinking, I have to do this in order to get XYZ, then you're, as you say, collapsing it energetically from the inside.
Yeah. And you're like thinking very linearly and like cause and effect, which is not usually the way magic gets created. And
Mm-hmm.
step one in order to step two. It's often very less ordered than that.
Because I think we did this with our podcast. What was our process through this lens of taking something that already existed and then making our own version of it?
I think most importantly, it was bred from an enthusiasm and excitement and a conversation that you and I were already having, and how lit up it made us. And we thought, I thought this is absolute insanity to not be sharing what we're talking about, because it's lighting both of us up. So why would we not allow other people to participate in this conversation with us? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing from a business, or from, oh my God, I have this new modality of like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm really excited. This is so much fun. I know what kind of change I can create with these tools. Like, wow, I want to change lives. Oh my goodness, what's it going to take to change lives with these amazing tools? Okay, let me show up and figure out how to run a business so that excitement and enthusiasm can be fulfilled and expressed.
Yeah. So it's the excitement, enthusiasm, the passion. It's like I said with the trends.
Yeah. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who is working for an organization, and I won't tell the organization or whatever, but she is so turned on by her job at this organization because she keeps seeing gaps in their systems or their processes or their product, and she knows how to fill them. And she's just so lit up because she sees, wow, like I'm so aware. The more I learn about this, the more I see the place where they need me. And in some of those instances, she's like, I'm the person to bridge that gap. And in one instance, she was like, wow, I see this gap and I know the person who could fill that. And so she tried to we're in discussion about that, bringing me in to help fill that gap for that company. And that like fills her cup. And so she's aware of this amazing capacity, which is sort of like what we're talking about, translating something that already exists to a new form or to a new functioning. It's also about seeing where the place is in this world that lights you up, and going and standing there and saying, I'm going to do this part. I'm going to bridge this world from this world to here.
I love that you bring up the concept of the bridge, because so something that I think of is anybody who is in this industry, we'll call it, of talking about spiritual stuff, real spiritual stuff, is a bridge. They are bridging from the infinite, or the sixth sense, the 5D, into the 3D. It's trying to speak about and have words to describe something that is maybe inherently undescribable in this way. It's using language to try to like paint a picture about what reality is. And I think of that as naturally being a translation process. And when I'm in the process of describing it, that is what I'm doing. I'm not coming up with it through imagination. I'm coming up with it through this process of sensing, intuiting how things are, observing, and like how hypothesizing about reality, and then expressing. And so it's this, that's what I think that we are ultimately doing, is we are translating what from a different, I guess, plane, so to speak, through our language or through whatever. For me, it's language, to be able to understand it in a different way. I really feel like the mind can't really understand spirit. And so it needs mental models in order to do so. And so the work that I feel myself called to do, that I feel like I'm good at doing, that niche is basically filling in the mental models of how spirit, quote, works. Because, and it's always evolving. So it's an ever growing process. There's never all right, we got it, it's done, close the book. It's like there will always be evolution, and therefore there will always be more to say, and there will be always more to conceptualize and, quote, figure out. And that process is just really fun for me. Like, that lights me up. I love doing it, and I want to do it in more ways, not just through words, but also symbolic language of, filmmaking or video games, or, different ways of basically understanding something that we're only beginning to understand.
Yeah. So for those out there that are like, well, what about me?
Yeah.
What is it that you are most turned on and lit up about? What is it that when you've been in that role, or you've been in that position, or that conversation, or that experience, that has just lit you on fire, or that has been so clearly a flow state for you? That what was it? What was it about that? And what would it take to call more of that into your life? What would more experiences like that look like? After Chris and I had this conversation about the seat at the table, I started making that a bigger ask of mine, of what would it take for more opportunities to show up that I would have never come up with myself, to feel like I'm in this conversation with more people, basically, to get to do my magic and be me, or more of me, in more settings and more different capacities than just the way I'm already serving my clients, the way I'm already running my business, the way I'm already doing my podcasts. And like, many different doors have opened out of nowhere, I almost want like jazz fingers, out of nowhere, as if by magic. Different channels and openings and opportunities and possibilities and gigs basically have showed up out of the woodwork to be like, how about this? And some of them are working out and some of them might not. But yeah, getting some version of that felt really good to me. What would more of that look like in my life? And asking, and then seeing what shows up.
If it's helpful, not feeling like you are because when we talk about like you have to create your reality, what that often people feel like that means is you have to conceptualize and execute your reality, which I feel like is not true. I feel like you don't need to do all the heavy lifting of creating your reality. It's simply like you are working in tandem with spirit, with the collective. So being open to it means that these like doors start opening. I feel weird saying like, because this is kind of a cliched thing to say, especially creatives will say like, oh, it was like God was moving through me when I was like writing this, or, it wasn't me writing it. It was like I was channeling. I really think that channeling is simply setting yourself and your perspective aside for a moment and letting reality take the wheel over your life. And when you do that more and more in more contexts, you see that like channeling is actually a very like natural thing to do. A lot of people can only feel like they channel in creativity, creative contexts. I always feel like I'm channeling when we're on the podcast, because if I was to try to memorize what I was going to say, like write it down beforehand and then say it, like it would be a terrible podcast. It would be like me like trying to sound confident and like, and saying things, trying to be like, say them perfectly. But instead of trying to say them perfectly, I just set aside what I think I'm going to say and I just let it come through.
Yeah.
And the more that I do that, the more that these doors open up, the more that it gets fun. Like it's actually fun to do this. And that's why, and it's not just here, but also in, other work that I do, like consulting work, setting aside what I think I know and just being present and then just letting it happen could be terrifying, especially when people are looking at you for the answer. But there's trust in that and letting the universe move through you, work through you, that you are the bridge for the universe into your reality, and also the translator of the experience from the universe into your life. Yeah. What were you saying, Molly?
Yeah, that we talked about that more on the circuit episode too a while back. But the act of being that channel and allowing that translation, that flow, that information to bridge through you is enlivening, allowing that energy to move through you as if you're part of that circuit of information or energy, changing states, changing forms, changing dimensions, it fills you up. And that's why people who love writing or people who love running or people who love podcasting do it more, because that feeling of being the channel through which flow moves is energizing and exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And then you kind of don't really care if is it me having these thoughts or is it spirit or what? Because the
Yeah.
experience is so, as you say, enlivening that you don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
You were really just looking for the experience in the first place. At least I'm saying you, but this is the case for me, and it could be the case for you if you choose it.
Well, hopefully that was a good episode for you guys. I had fun. Awesome. If you guys enjoyed it, please listen to a few more episodes. Share this episode with a friend. Chris right now is in Portugal. I am on the road again, but there are some links in the show notes if you'd like to book a call with either of us. We're available for that. If you want to riff on what your life is up to and how you're doing and what your game of life could be or is becoming, we'd love to have those conversations with you. And until next time, keep what resonates with you and leave the rest. And you can learn more at revealthegameoflife.com. Have a good day.
Yeah. See you next time.